Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the delayed start of the February 20th, 2025 regular planning board meeting. Since we have a quorum, I'll call us to order. We can stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Of course, first order of business is conflict of interest. Does any member of the planning board have a conflict of interest or the appearance of the conflict of interest with regard to any item on the agenda? If so, please state so at the time, and we'll go down the row starting with Richard.
I do not.
I do not.
I do not.
I do not.
And I see we need a typo corrected there.
Yeah.
It says council, not planning board. The new software. Next item is to amend or approve the agenda. So I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda by adding an item 8.1, which is the election of the chair and the vice chair. We put that off last month for the assumption that we'd have our fifth member, but since he can't come the next month, I think we should go ahead and get that done today. Anyone want to second that motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Nope. So the ayes have it, so we'll add that as 8.1. Anybody else need to amend the agenda?
I would like to add wherever you feel,
Are you making a motion?
well, I just feel like I want to add a discussion item wherever you would like to add it.
Well, on what?
A discussion item on long-range planning.
Well, let's do that after the election then. 8.2.
Okay.
So you have to make a motion then to add just a long-range planning brief, let's call it a brief discussion item
Okay.
on long-range planning.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays?
Nope.
Okay, ayes have it. So we got an 8.2 is a short, brief discussion and some long-range planning. Not sure we can do that. Okay, first item, based on those two changes, I make a motion to approve the agenda with 8.1 and 8.2 added.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The amended agenda is approved. First item of business is the approval of our minutes from the January 16th, 2025 meeting. I was through it once already, so it's okay with me.
Yeah.
Anyone else have any changes?
No.
The only thing I would like, it's really a minor thing, in the discussion about changing the rules for public comments, the original proposal
What
was,
page you on or something?
I think it's page 5.
Page 5, okay. Oh, administrative comments?
Yeah, the original proposal was that the public dialogue time extension would be for 3 minutes. No, I guess, okay, no, it's in here, but the actual motion was for 2. Never mind, it's fine.
It's fine?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll move to approve the minutes as published.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Nope. Ayes have it, so the minutes are approved. Okay. Any, number 4 here, excuse me, number 5, any public comments on what's on the agenda today, including added items? Okay, seeing no public comments, we'll move to item 6, old business, text 6.1, text amendment concerning section 3.12, filling, grading, and excavation. Ron 2, you're on.
Yep, thank you. We've had a couple of discussions at the last 2 board meetings, I believe, on this, make some changes, and I've been working with Stuart on trying to shore up some language should the planning board wish to move forward with it regarding filling and grading and excavation standards on the mainland only. So this would not impact anything on the island area, but just on the mainland. As we have discussed before, excavation or filling and grading on the mainland refers to a situation on the island where basically assumes that both lots beside you are developed.
Mhm.
And that's the standard that applies for those, for the situation on the mainland, regardless if neighboring properties are vacant or if the neighboring properties are developed. And the staff's review of this and in conversation with Stuart, that one size fits all does, and the way the wording is, does not fit in all
Right.
situations.
So our current code is paragraph 1B, which tells you to do 1D, which tells you to do it like 1B.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
Which is the only alternative for the mainland, which obviously can't fit
Correct.
all
So-
cases.
So someone said there's 3 vacant lots and the middle lot decides to build first, then it's making assumptions that the 2 properties next to them are developed. So they kind of start set the baseline. So Stuart and I came up with some language that's found on page 3 of this particular case summary. Underline in red text is what's being proposed, and then obviously the strike through in red text is what we're proposing to remove.
I guess
So-
to make sure everybody hears it, go ahead and read it out. I guess,
Yeah,
if you want.
well. So the change would be for lots on the mainland, filling, grading, and excavation shall maintain existing natural drainage patterns such that additional flows are not directed or redirected onto adjacent properties. In addition, lots shall be graded to direct stormwater runoff away from the building on the property. Then at time of submittal, the design professional preparing the site plan shall certify that the filling, grading, and excavation complies with these requirements and all requirements of Brunswick County. I did take the liberty and added that last sentence from the conversation as I was giving it thought. How do we know if it's going to be designed that way? Well, let's let them certify as they're designing it that it complies. Somewhat using some of the language for stormwater, like we do some. It's not the exact language for stormwater, but it's similar to the concept, same concept. And otherwise, I believe the proposed language was consistent with what was discussed at your last meeting.
I have a quick question, and this
Yes, sir.
this may mean a difference in my understanding of language as an English major as opposed to an engineer. When I see the word natural, does that exclude something that has been man-made as a drainage pattern?
So you're talking about
Because-
in the first sentence, shall
Yeah.
maintain existing natural drainage pattern?
So in my interpretation for this, since it says existing, that if somebody's altered it before you get to doing your site plan, if somebody's altered off-site where the drainage is going,
Right.
that you need to maintain the stormwater going to that same location, not the natural that it was 2,000 years ago,
Right.
but existing natural, which would be somebody's already modified it somewhere along the way, but you're supposed to get it back to that same.
And
I guess that's the way
That's
I
what
would
the
interpret
intent-
it, right?
that was the intent and how staff
Right.
would have interpreted it as well.
If you didn't have the word existing, then
Right.
you'd have a problem, but it's existing natural.
So in situations, and I can think of a perfect example, the runoff from the 15th hole in Maples runs down onto that road, and there's a significant amount of galvanized drainage that was originally put that's now rusted out and then is no good. So that would be considered existing natural drainage.
Right.
Okay. All right.
And
So-
the intent, if I can, so remember, this is as someone's coming to develop a single family piece
Okay.
of property, basically, not in all
Right.
but that's kind of where the majority of the permits we see.
Right. So
And-
whether it's a corner lot, a lot between a lot, or
Right.
a lot by itself, whatever the drainage pattern is at the time you're thinking about getting a permit,
You've got to maintain that
Right.
pattern
right?
There's-
Whether
yeah.
it,
or improve it.
well, you just can't you can't change it such that you redirect the flow onto adjacent properties.
So for general terms, let's say the existing drainage leaves the back left-hand corner of the property.
Right.
That's kind of what that's engineer would certify that's where it is going to leave.
Yeah.
Once the property is developed.
So the homeowner that's stuck with that drainage issue cannot improve it.
But
Well, yeah, they still can under stormwater. I mean, they're still subject to the limitation on non-permeable, and they're still subject to handling their 1.5 inch of water.
Existing lot out there that's not part of a major, that wasn't, they would still have to put like some water,
Right.
some
So they
water
still got to
management
do all
feature.
that.
Okay.
This doesn't let them fill in grades. Really, and I think we got it here. You can't fill, especially fill, and then grade, because as opposed to handling your water on your property, you just send it over to your neighbor that's
Got it.
another lot or something, you
So
know.
in Ron's example, if you moved all the drainage, you filled it and moved all the water going to the opposite back corner, that would be a no-no. Because
Okay.
now you're putting stormwater onto somebody
Somebody
who
else's.
wasn't getting it before.
But if I can, what's the right word? Mitigate the stormwater on my property. Fine.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Makes sense.
Any other questions, Jerry?
Yeah, why Brunswick County versus the state requirements? Why use Brunswick County for requirements versus the state requirements?
So if you fill more than 4 inches over the whole site, you have to go to Brunswick County to get a permit.
Okay.
And so that was the trigger, kind of, that if Ron sees an application come in and they've got 6 inches of fill over the whole site, he can say, no, you got to go to Brunswick County, and
Okay.
they got to sign off on it.
It was more of a question than
Yeah, and the state wouldn't get involved in a single individual lot,
That's anything
but
less
the
than,
county would.
anything less than an acre, like
County
the state's
does.
not going to
Yeah.
The county does get involved.
Yes.
All right, thank you for explaining.
Okay.
that.
Yeah. No, this is great.
I'm good with anything, Stuart?
No, I'm good with it.
It's still a one size fits all, but to me, it leaves some engineering design to the
Well,
engineer to figure it
Because we're
out.
trying to make sure that you're free, you got the rights to build, but you're not causing adverse
Correct.
effect on your adjacent property.
Correct.
Your build shouldn't adversely affect anybody else, especially when you do it purposely by adding earth to do it, which is
Correct.
what I think we're trying to.
Well, because I know in certain parts of Sea Trail, there are drainage channels that aren't a part of anybody's property. They're basically between lots. Now, does that impact? So if I say, hey, listen, I'm going to take this water, I'm going to put it into an existing drainage pattern.
In like a vegetated swale,
Some of them
Which
are
already is.
galvanized.
that's part of the
having-
stormwater infrastructure that's already there, right?
Correct.
So
It'd be part of the existing
it's part of
natural-
existing natural flow. They got to
Yeah.
maintain it. I mean, keep doing
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
So if I were to say, hey, listen, I'm going to take the stormwater and put it into an existing natural drainage facility that's been not on somebody else's property, okay,
Right.
that would be okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Anything else, Stuart, you want to add?
No,
Oh, well,
No, I think
Oh,
this is
Jerry,
bolted
you're
down
right.
pretty tight. Thanks.
And I appreciate Stuart helping me
Okay.
with the wording on this.
well, thanks, Ron, for working with me.
Any other questions or discussion? We're set? Then
We're gonna
I'll leave it to Stuart to make a motion to proceed with action A, and then I'll read it. Oh, no,
All right,
Make a motion to proceed with action A?
make a motion to proceed with action A if we can eliminate the little squiggly mark at the end of the
Oh.
paragraph.
Yeah, I don't even know what that was.
What is that?
It looks like a division
A
sign.
division sign?
Oh, it's just it's crossing out a colon.
Oh, crossing out a
Crossing out
colon.
a colon.
Okay, it's correct then.
Oh, okay, it's correct.
All right, so just make you're going to clarify your motion.
Make a motion to approve the language
Just go to
for
action.
item D.
Okay, anybody second?
I second it.
Second.
Okay, so I'll read action A. The planning board hereby recommends approval of the proposed amendment to the Unified Development Ordinance and finds that it is neither, one, consistent or non-consistent with the town's comprehensive plan, 2017 Town of Sunset Beach Land Use Plan, as there are no specific policies pertaining to filling, grading, or excavation of lots on the mainland, and two, that it is in the public interest. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any nays? No nays, so Action A is approved, 4 against, 4, and 0 against.
So this now goes to the town council.
Yep.
Should be-
All right.
Okay. Next item, 6.2, is a staff report text amendment. Goes to your question, Richard, earlier. Various sections to comply with the 2024 State of North Carolina legislation. So, Ron, you have the floor again.
Yes, sir. So last month I presented, I think it was 10 or 11 potential legislative items that we would want and need to address in this code. So, and gave you, in some ways, said, hey, maybe we need to consider doing this, and took your feedback. So after I did further inspection, not all 10 or 11 of those things I felt like we needed to address. And so I think there's 7 in this one that I've thrown out there for potential changes. I'm going to go through them in order. If you had your previous legislative packet that I gave you, so on your attachment A here, if you'll see, like the first one says on-premises advertising signs, and it says number 2 on legislative update summary from last meeting. That means obviously the first one, which I think was security fencing, I didn't feel like we needed to address. So on-premises advertising signs, we talked about this one, proposing to, under the non-conforming or signs 3.41, adding a paragraph J, relocation or reconstruction of an on-premises advertising sign. Creating the standards. These standards are basically right straight out of the legislation. And
So
then,
this paragraph is taken from this new legislation.
yes, sir. And then also proposing amending the definitions by inputting or adding a definition of on-premises advertising sign,
Right.
which would be a type of an on-premises sign.
Is this also consistent with the state definition?
That definition is consistent with the state definition.
Okay. Any questions from anybody on this section? Nope.
No.
Nope.
And let me preface too, and I'll move on, but whether we make the changes or not, the statute still will govern over what we do.
Right. So
So-
we're making our UDO consistent with state law.
Correct.
But if we don't, whether we don't because we decide not to or don't because we missed something, state
still-
law
State law still applies.
still applies.
Yes, sir.
I guess it's how it will be implemented then.
Yes, sir.
Somebody tells you that, hey, this is a state law and you got this law, so you then make the decision at that point. If somebody would say somebody with this sign thing came up to you and said, if we say we didn't have that, they'd say, hey, well, you're not consistent with state
I've
law.
already used the sign for someone.
Okay, so they
Doesn't-
kind of tell you that.
Mhm.
Okay. All right, so no questions. Let's move to the next one then.
Okay. Second was creation of new lots, division of land. It's really, that was the title, but it really has to do with subdivision performance guarantees. These are sureties and bonds that are posted for improvements within a subdivision. So I've gone through the code and are proposing making changes to the 2.15F 2B. And you'll see in the red strike through language at the end, these are the best places I could figure out to put it in the code where it made sense and the flow was there. So 2B would say, proposing to add the language, no performance guarantee may be required for maintenance of any improvement once the improvement is completed to the specification of the town or upon receipt of a certification under seal from a professional engineer that those required improvements have been completed. That's not something we can, basically if the town says, no, we don't think that the improvements have been completed, but they hire a professional engineer to say otherwise, we have to accept what the professional engineer stated. And I believe that's covered in actually E down below.
Right.
Does that professional engineer have to be independent, or can he be the employee? It
It
can be
doesn't say, it says
anybody.
professional engineer.
So as long as he's certified, if
good
he's
question.
working for the developer,
Well, that would, a PE license would be
Yeah.
subject to revocation.
Yeah.
should a conflict of interest occur and they do not disclose PEs, as I
Right.
was one, or tired now.
Okay.
We have a code of ethics that doesn't mean somebody doesn't break that, I guess, but have a code of ethics such that they would not seal something.
So just to expound on that, if a PE turned in a letter saying all the improvements are done, and Lisa and Ron know they are not done,
Mm-hmm.
they can turn that PE into
Yeah.
the licensing board, get him in trouble. So again, there's checks and balances for all this. So that PE knows that if he turns in something and it's invalid, that he can get in trouble. He can lose his license for doing that.
So certainly nothing absolutely rules bad behavior or illegal behavior, but
Right.
there are pretty strong checks and balances where
Yeah.
one, for a PE to become a PE, and then to maintain that license. I'm not sure what,
Well,
we're
then
not
let
a
me ask-
PE here, but I'm sure they got to get education and recertification periodically.
Oh, yeah.
Well, let me ask this then of staff in terms of the day-to-day, because I understand the structural and theoretical issue of checks and balances. My experience is that sometimes those can get a little fuzzy in terms of actual application. So my question would be, in your experience, is this something that raises a red flag for you, or is this fairly routine and acceptable standard in terms of now relinquishing the town's ability to say, no, it's not done, you need to go back and redo it again? Because it seems to me we're giving up something here that is going to limit the town's ability to enforce what we require. And that to me is
Well, but
a little scary.
in the end, it's already done.
It's
So we're just acknowledging what the legislature has
Yeah,
shoved down our
That's
throats.
already, that's
it's
law.
it's in the law. It is code, and it says a local government shall conduct an inspection within 30 days of request and advise the developer whether the improvements are completed. In the event a local government and developer disagree whether a required improvement is completed to the specifications of a local government, a developer may obtain a certification under seal from a licensed professional engineer that the required improvements have been completed to the specifications of the local government. That's the stat. I just read you right out of the statute.
Okay, so that's the new statute.
Yes.
Right.
So we're really
Just
imperiled
comply.
here
Right.
if we don't adhere. I
Right,
mean,
and
you
I
guys
put-
could say, hey, we don't think this is done, and somebody could go, well,
And-
too
and I-
freaking bad, we don't care.
But in some end, it's better than nothing, because what the state's telling you, if there's a disagreement,
Right.
go to a PE and get it resolved.
It's
We're
actually-
going
And
to
the P-
stand on that PE certification
Right. So,
because we don't have engineers on staff.
right.
I'm
We're
sorry,
gonna-
say it again?
We don't have,
We're going to stand on that PE certification because we don't have engineers on staff.
And we do that anyway.
Right.
Correct.
We would require a cross section of a street as an example, and it's done by an asphalt company, and engineer certifies that that's what the design is.
takes some burden off the town
right.
in a way.
Okay.
Yeah, it does.
Because I don't know
It
what,
does.
without that, it's just town says, developer says, who resolves
Right.
it.
Right.
So actually, here is somewhat a resolution that a PE's got to stake his license on it by saying it's done right.
Okay.
So it's not necessarily all bad.
Right. Well, I mean, my concern is the phrase developer's engineer. And while I understand the whole notion of independence and oversight and professional oversight, that it does concern me that we're at the mercy of forces beyond our control that are going to impact what we can and can't do here.
Okay.
So, okay.
And Ron, you got the part E, and
Yeah, and I guess unless there's questions, I mean,
No,
I
you're
can
good.
read it as being proposed, but it's just language right out of the statutes, and
Mhm.
I put it where I felt
That's
it best fit the code. And
You
I
just read that.
Yeah, I just read it actually.
okay.
On the second part of E,
Where it says within 30 days.
yeah, within 30 days, the town that the improvements is being required.
Within 30 plumbing miles above the
I think there's
town.
an extra is in there. That the improvements being required are complete or upon receipt.
Probably so.
So just strike that word.
Yeah, I think we could
The
just
word the is-
lose the is.
The is between improvements and being you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Good catch. Thank you.
I would consider that just a grammatical change.
Yep.
It doesn't change the sense of anything.
No.
Okay, any other questions on this one? Okay, move on to item 5.
All right. Yeah, next item is sidewalks for subdivisions in the ETJ. And again, this is just for subdivisions in the ETJ. I'm proposing adding a section F to section 4.111. And this is language, again, straight out of the statute. So there was some, I think at the last meeting, we had some discussion on this. Which roads does it apply, subdivisions, and what if it's private roads, et cetera. A little more inspection of the ordinance. I'm assuming the statutes. This would apply for subdivisions that contains 20 or fewer lots. And within our ETJ, the town cannot require a developer to design and construct pedestrian facilities, including sidewalks, within rights of way for new streets designated as public.
So this is only for the ETJ.
Only for ETJ and only for subdivisions with fewer than 20 lots and only for new public streets.
Yeah, so if they're private streets,
Private is implied.
we can still ask.
And
You could always ask. for
and
it.
I'm
Yeah.
actually and I'm actually looking at the word new streets. So
Uh-huh.
an existing street, let's say, that's a DOT controlled street and someone's platting out 10 lots. If our subdivision requirements require sidewalk, then I believe we could still require the sidewalk.
And I inferred from this, and maybe I'm wrong, what they're trying to do is not allow the town to make a sidewalk be built and then stick it on the NCD to maintain the sidewalk, right? It sounds like they were just saying,
Yeah,
you can't insist on a sidewalk and then
Right.
make us maintain it for
Right.
you.
in
That
these,
basically
in these small subdivisions.
in these small subdivisions.
Exactly.
And really,
I
I
don't know
mean,
if we were doing, have we ever done, I don't think we've ever done it.
I'm not familiar with all your
It
subdivisions.
sounds like they were just saying, you guys can't require a sidewalk outside the town limits.
But there are communities that do, or that work.
Yeah, and then try to stick the sidewalk on the back of the NC dot for maintenance.
now I know this, so this wouldn't apply at all to the Logan development.
I was in,
No.
So it's only for developments 20 lots and below.
correct.
Yep. And really, in terms of, I mean, there's a very good chance ETJs are going to go bye-bye, given North Carolina's legislative.
I've seen a
intentions.
couple of towns, ETJ was repealed.
They've
last year.
already gone bye-bye. So this is really, okay, great.
Two comments on that section. One is the heading for 4.11
Mhm.
says pedestrian.
Huh.
We need an R in there.
That like I cut and paste out of the code. Let me see.
I know. I just looked at the code and it's correct.
Is it? Okay,
Yeah.
well, that was just bad spelling on my end then.
Oh, the heading here?
Pedestrian.
Before-
Good
Yeah,
catch.
it looked like you just copied it out of the code. I don't know.
The heading of, the blue heading,
We'll
pedestrian.
check,
Pedestrian.
we'll confirm, but we'll definitely we'll make it right as it moves.
Fix
forward.
that typo.
Yeah, I mean, it looks fine in the code. And then in the, I guess towards the end of your section there, it mentions the word city. And we're a town,
Unless the city
unless
accepts,
the city accepts.
That's right out of statute probably, but we'll see.
Yeah.
how-
Change that to town.
Yes.
change that to town. Doesn't, again, it's a grammatical thing, doesn't change the sentence.
Yep.
Okay.
No worries. Yeah, good catches. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
everybody
Thanks.
okay moving on to
Yep.
legislative number 7?
Glad you're reading it.
He's a good eye for catching those, not as good as me. Apparently the English major didn't catch it, but that's okay.
Okay, the next one is regarding building code enforcement and issuance of COs. Again, it's something we can't do already, but basically we cannot hold up the issuance of a certificate of occupancy unless there's a public safety issue. And the statutes made it clear that a public safety issue did not include installation, placement, repair, replacement, repair replacement of landscaping around like a house. You know how we have landscaping requirements around the single family home,
36 points.
right? Or landscaping within common areas within a subdivision, or street lighting. So that those three things were identified as non-public safety items,
Street lighting is?
right? So in
Street
lieu of
lighting
that-
fixtures.
right? Was added to the statutes for clarification. What cannot
It's actually
be, what cannot
Brunswick
hold up a
Electric.
CO.
Yeah. So what it says here, you have to give the CO even if these things are not quite
We
done.
have to issue those COs, but it says and the statutes would say the developer shall submit to the town a signed affidavit detailing the reasons why the required site improvements are not complete, the expected date of completion compliance, and a statement promising to complete the required site improvements.
But there was no
No time limits.
time limit on it. That one really.
And I couldn't find anything that would say we could do that. So
And we have no,
My experience has been that I heard, I don't know if it's true, that if you're not done with your landscaping, the town has been issuing COs, giving you like 30 days or 60 days to finish that.
Right.
As a kind of a standard operating procedure. I don't know if that's correct or not to say. I don't know what I've just heard that.
it's in essence right now.
I had my landscaping done before the CO, but I've
In
heard
essence-
people that are not quite done.
At some point, you become a zoning violation if
Right.
it's not installed. So then our zoning enforcement process would work with the homeowner, provide them a minimum 30 days to bring it into compliance, most likely, and move from there.
absent that compliance, what happens?
After
Absent that compliance, what happens?
they will be fined
Okay.
daily. Was it $100 per day, I believe, or whatever it is per day?
Okay,
They
but
fine
there
them.
is some,
Yes.
okay. The only thing I see here is in that first sentence, there's a verb missing. If it is,
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's
Which one?
the is from the
It's it.
previous section.
Move that.
okay, good. All right, so,
If it is reasonably.
yes.
Okay.
And at
Thank
the,
you.
Yeah,
at the
just
very,
move that is from the other one to this one.
Yeah.
I read these things 3 times, so if I just don't see my mistakes,
Again,
apologize
grammar
for that.
cut.
and at the very end, there's some quotation marks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Again, grammar corrections.
I don't see my own mistakes. Apologize for that.
Oh, yeah.
I guess I somewhat don't like this one, but again, it is the law. I mean, streetlights, it seems to me that should be done. But have you ever run into something like that? Or DEMC usually gets it done? And
I'm not familiar enough with.
That's the
Other-
problem. Well, from a developer's perspective, they don't really have any control over BEMC's schedule, so you don't know when they're going to come. And
Right.
and if you have a major hurricane or something like that, they're not going to show up for months.
Yeah.
So
Good point.
Right.
okay.
All right,
I'll
yes.
agree to move on to number
That's a
9.
great insight. Thanks, Stuart.
See what you can find in my errors on this one. So
I found one.
You got one?
3 and 4 family dwellings was based. They were added as a duplex or triplex and quadruplex. They were added to the North Carolina Residential Building Code, which means that we can't put design standards on a triplex or a quadruplex should the town allow them. So we couldn't have certain roof pitch, certain colors, door orientation, those kind of things. So proposing to bring 2 things here. One is to change the definition of multifamily to 5 units, 5 or more attached units from 3 or more. 5, just getting past that quad.
Okay.
And then the other one is because in the Gateway Overlay District, it said it's the single family and duplex dwellings would be exempt. So what I'm proposing is just bring over language that was straight from urban design standards, which said included multifamily dwellings of 7 or fewer dwelling units.
So is that 7 or 5?
Well, we would not require design standards in the Gateway for 6 or fewer.
No, 7 or fewer. That's the way it's written.
Yeah,
down.
7 or fewer. I'm sorry. So they have 7, and that's right out. That's the same language in the urban design standards. My first gut was to just say structures that are exempt from the North Carolina Residential Building
Well,
Code.
I want to make sure it's clear. So the new definition of what a multifamily is 5 or more.
Mm-hmm.
So when we say multifamily dwellings
7 or fewer.
are
And
exempt.
that's right out of the urban design standards.
This is what's exempt from the standard,
Correct.
right? Single family. So 1, 2, or what falls in the new definition of multifamily, 7 or fewer. Once you hit 8 on multifamily, you're not exempt, right? Am I
Correct.
getting this correct? If you're in the gateway corridor, if
Versus
you're
design.
if you're a multifamily of 8, you're not exempt from the
Right.
standards.
And this is only in the overlay district.
Right.
Yes,
Gateway overlay.
3.3, right?
And I didn't propose changing urban design standards because the language in urban design standards says multifamily dwellings of 7 or fewer.
So
Okay.
why is the mud district in here? Because that's not in the overlay district, correct?
Well, they're in there too.
We don't have design standards. for
Development in the mud is exempt completely.
Yes, the
I'm
mud.
sorry, say it again.
Item II, right below that.
It's exempt.
The whole mud district is
Mud
already
is
exempt,
from this.
currently exempt.
Okay, so we cannot enforce our standards on someone that wants to develop in the mud district.
No, they got to follow whatever the mud district standards are.
Right.
Okay.
And they have standards, right?
The
Mud
the
district.
mud district has their architectural review
Right.
board with their design criteria.
Interesting.
I never looked to see how much different that is than the town's overlay district. Probably significantly different, I guess.
Well,
I've never looked at, I don't think we've ever compared like what is the overlay district compared to what the MUD's current architectural standards are.
Yeah,
Do they clash? Do they blend? I don't have a clue.
I've not done a side by side comparison. I've looked at both, but I've not done a side by side comparison. And
Right, because
the mud,
we don't enforce theirs. It's up to them. to
correct. And
enforce
the
theirs.
mud design standards were riddled with encourage and should and those type of words, and they are not enforceable in a code. I could put if we put them in a code as written, we can't enforce them.
Well, this is, I mean, the reason I ask is because obviously with the issue of now that the height requirements have been changed for the hotel, I'm assuming at some point we're going to get a preliminary plat for the hotel. One of the issues that's come up from the residents is trying to maintain the architectural standard that is in the mud district right now,
Mhm.
which is, I mean, they call
I
it
think
Charleston.
Don't we get a letter from them saying that if they come to us that they have to pass?
They
Not
will,
the
Architectural.
only one that I've done before. I thought we got like a letter
they will be
from
required,
certifying that they passed the architectural
Architectural.
standards of the.
but we can't hold up a permit because they haven't gone through. Or so if you hotel plan is submitted for your review, you can't hold up their review because they haven't gotten through the design standards of the ARB, the Architectural Review Board. Same way, like you're not holding up for Brunswick County's stormwater plan. You acknowledge that they have to comply with that because we can't enforce their covenants. Their deed
Correct.
their restrictions.
Nobody's. We can't enforce any HOA's
We
covenants.
cannot enforce them
In the mud district.
in the
Anywhere.
or
Anywhere.
any covenants.
Yours, Sea Trails, we can't enforce. It's up to Sea Trail to enforce them.
So the Architectural Review Board for
We
the
can
mud-
moan about it and gripe
Right.
about it.
Well, I
and
mean,
grill the guy on it.
Sea Trail is an HOA, and so their architectural review supplants and replaces our architectural review. The Mud District isn't an HOA.
It's a property owner association.
Yeah.
It's a what?
Property owner POA, Property Owners Association.
Okay, so they get to decide what the rules.
And so they have my understanding is they have an architectural review board or committee, whichever it's called,
Okay.
and they review building plans to make sure they're compliant with the design standards that they have set forth. They actually have a little bit more leverage than the town would, in a lot of sense.
So in terms of, and I'm thinking ahead here, in terms of, we get a preliminary plat for the hotel. Now, I've done a little research into existing Hampton Inn Suites. They have constructed a Hampton Inn Suites in Williamsburg, okay, which was required to fit the architectural standards of Williamsburg, which is colonial. And one of the things we're hearing from the residents is that one of the issues is, are they going to come in here and replace the architectural standards that we've enforced so far, has been executed so far in the Mud District? Are we going to be able to apply some pressure so that the developer chooses to develop that hotel within a standard that is more in concert with what exists? It's a long way to say that. I hope I made it clear.
I know I believe I know what you're saying, and the only when it gets to you, your role is to after TRC review
Right.
review is to make sure it complies with the town's rules.
Okay.
Now you can ask them to
So
comply
we really
with the
need to look,
architecture, but you
we need
can't-
to look at the Mud District rules, and if they do not provide some guidance in terms of what's allowed in the Mud District, we're pretty much on our own.
Or
the Mud District's Architectural Review Board they govern the design of the aesthetic piece of what the buildings will look like, and kind of get
And I'm unfamiliar with it. Is that where is that architectural? Where does it come from?
It's within their property owners association.
owners.
The owners.
So the owners of those buildings have a property owners association, and they could enforce.
They enforce through their architectural review board. They review the design of the buildings.
So the developer would have to go through them and then come to us.
They have to go through them for the design of the building.
I'm not sure those people are even aware of that.
Who's those people? The
The
hotel folks?
people that I keep, I mean, I live on Fairway Drive East, so I'm right down the road. I talk to these people all the time.
Well, then they should go to their property owners meeting and,
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
I mean, we have an HOA a POA where I live, and we have an architectural review committee, and we vote on those members, and
Yeah.
Okay.
you have the code, so we.
Well, the issue over there is there's so many residential units. I'm not sure that there's really a
Okay,
formed POA. But
So,
it's something to explore.
anything, last, I guess, Ron, before we move to any voting, is then sort of the question where we started out
Downzoning.
with, is your feeling on the item 10, which we're not doing any language on the down zoning
Yeah.
part.
The reason I did not include downzoning is, first of all, we're bound to the statute, how the statute is currently worded. Second, major reason why is I didn't want to amend our code and then turn around 2 months from now have to amend it again, because there's been probably no fewer than 10 different legislation or bills submitted under review in various committees to change the language. So there's been, I know one bill who is, I believe it was a House bill, that has requested just repealing
HB
the
24.
HB, just repealing it in its entirety and going back to what it was. There's been a number of other bills that have said specific counties within the state would repeal it in its entirety. They're going to land on something.
Right.
We just
Now,
don't
is
know what it is.
Brunswick County included in those counties that are?
Not yet, but I believe at the budget retreat or budget workshop on February 7th, is that right? The town adopted a resolution in support of repealing its entirety, and that's been provided to the local legislators.
And I assume our lobbyist is working on this, correct? Okay, great.
Okay,
And it has been sent to all of our representatives, and as far as I know, all the municipalities within the coastal areas of North Carolina have submitted a House bill, the resolution for that House bill.
Now, I hate to keep tripping over these details. We have this issue where if a preliminary plat has been issued based on a previous UDO, we are bound by that previous UDO. How does this impact that?
How does the downzoning impact it?
Yeah, so
it wouldn't.
It doesn't.
so the previous UDO, absent these changes, is what would apply,
So
despite
the
what North
UDO
Carolina
applies when they
legislators.
get platted.
Beg pardon?
If they got their preliminary
There's-
plat approved, that's what applies. Up to, I think it expires after 10 years or something. right?
Yeah, I
If they
forget
do
exactly.
nothing
Yeah,
if they do,
nothing, it's a couple of
if
years.
they do nothing, I forget what the
It's like 2
expiration-
years or
2 or
something,
3
right?
years out, it expires and they got to come back.
Okay, now how does this impact a conditional zoning approval?
But if you're looking at conditional zoning approvals, like Riptide had 17
21,
or
21.
whatever it was, and then you have Angel's Trace, et cetera. Conditional zoning runs with the land. And so think, to me, a conditional
Doesn't
zoning district is
expire.
its own set of zoning rules.
Right.
And so,
So
this-
if
Zoning
it
doesn't
precedes this UDO change, it is still governed by the previous UDO
this
language,
CZ, yes. This-
Okay.
Whatever the
whatever
CZ,
North Carolina legislature says.
Yeah, and the downzoning did not impact conditional zoning because conditional zoning requires the property owner's
Yeah.
approval.
I don't want to really.
They
but-
have to agree.
Okay.
Going back, in maybe fortunately or not in our case, because this legislation did kind of have a look back of,
June,
Yeah,
6
June
months,
30th.
like June
we
13th.
had done all of our UDO was approved, and actually both of our conditional zoning things were all done before that date.
Yes.
So
And
it's
I,
not
I-
even
and,
right.
and I would like to say the citizens of this town should be thankful
Right.
that we spent 2 years doing this before this happened, because
Our-
now Brunswick County is proposing to change their UDO. And in light
Yep.
of this legislation, I wish them the best
So
of luck.
the only thing I view we have to be careful of whenever we do a text amendment now,
Yes.
that we're not in violation of the current legislation,
Absolutely.
which means our choices then is to not do it or table it to see when, because we don't want to go astray of the present law. So if we have an item that, I don't get, but say when we change the land size on MR3, the lot size. Certainly, I would think if we were doing that now, it would be in violation of the current law.
Exactly.
We would either have to table that to wait and see or whatever. But anyway, let's move on.
Okay.
I guess,
Thank you, Ron.
barring anything else, Ron, you're okay?
We're okay.
The next thing I would like to make a motion that we proceed with action A. Anybody want to second that?
I will second.
Okay. So I'll read action A. The planning board here recommends approval of the proposed, I would say, amendments to the Uniform Development Ordinance and finds that it is neither one, consistent nor inconsistent with the town's comprehensive plan, 2017 Town of Sunset Beach Land Use Plan, but the proposed amendments, including the grammatical errors noted, are needed to bring the town's UDO in compliance with North Carolina general statutes, and that is in, and two, it is in the public interest. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Nope. So 4-0, it's approved.
And thank you, Ron,
Yep.
for,
Welcome.
for
Slogging through
Through
that.
that.
the yeoman's work of figuring this out.
And I guess the only other thing, Ron, is keep us abreast of the changes, I
Yes.
guess, which you probably were planning
Yes.
on anyway.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Whichever way they go, I guess. Let me clear my paperwork here for a second. Okay, so we're moving on that one. Next, I guess we're in new business now, right? 7 point, so this is approved. 7.1, concerning text amendment, section 3.41.C1.S, political signs. Ron, 2 again.
Yeah,
Tell us what we got going here.
kind of summarize this one real quickly. The intent is to revert the political sign standards back to what was previous or prior to the for the UDO changing. So currently, political signs can be placed in any town right of way or DOT right of way. No limitations based other than size. Well, you see the limitations here, but size and where it can be located. But proliferation of signs, no limits on numbers and so forth. Prior to the UDO change in 23, those political signs, they were called election signs in your former code, but they were allowed only on DOT rights of way, private property, of course, but only on DOT rights of way. So the request here is moving forward, or is trying to make the code consistent with the previous UDO standards.
So I think I understand what this is doing. So if it's a town right of way, and there are numerous town right of ways, and absent this change, the town has 6 feet of right of way on my property. Somebody could put a political sign that, in terms of its general impression, would look like it's on my property when in fact it's on the town right of way.
Correct.
And we want to stop that.
Correct.
Now, from a little
But it
historical perspective.
yeah, just to be clear, if I want to put that sign on my property,
On your
this
property,
does not impact that
you
at
get it.
all.
Correct. If you want to put a political sign on your property,
Even in the right of way.
No.
No.
So it's
Your
got to be
property.
6 feet back.
Wherever
Right.
your property line is.
Okay.
I don't know where your property line is, but you should know where it's at generally. So if it's your property, you get 1 sign or 2 signs. I don't know what the law says, but or you would need 1, I believe, but of certain size. But maybe not. I don't know what's
There's
But-
no limit.
no limit. Yeah. So historically, since I was here when this was written, I don't know if any of you else were. Jerry might have been, I guess.
I was here.
You were here. So I went back to look to see how we got here. And I found on our planning board special meeting minutes of June 6, 2022, when we were doing the original audit, there's a note there calling on Article 11 of Section 11S, Starodowski, Chad, requested the allowance of placement for election signs 10 to 20 feet off the pavement in the right-of-way of non-NC DOT roads that are town-owned for a set period of time. And then I pulled up the actual audit pages themselves to see what notes I wrote concerning Section 11.3 signs. And that's where we had to revise election signs to political signs, which we did. And then moving on to our March 2nd, 23 meeting, where we had actual language. This is where we were dealing with the draft amendment. Oh, little red tab here. Where on this section, T, we did change the word election signs to political signs. And literally, subparagraph VII or 8, we redlined and struck out, no sign shall be allowed within the town right of way. So
Pass back.
we purposely, at the time, and I sort of remember some sort of discussion concerning the Supreme Court ruling. I don't remember the name. Was it Gilbert versus something? or other?
Gilbert. It's Gilbert, Arizona. It's Reed versus Gilbert.
So literally, the language we're talking to put back in, we made a conscious decision. So I guess I'd like to hear is obviously something generated this request to unstrike the strike. What has generated this? Did people not comply with removing these signs? What obviously we had a big election, presidential, so there's a lot of activity, a lot of signs, obviously looked messy, everybody knows that. But do we have an issue of not being removed? What generated the thing? Obviously the town probably doesn't want, but hates driving around picking up signs when they're not, but my understanding is the people that put them in are supposed to pick them up. Was there some issue? It doesn't happen? What generated the request to unstrike or strike? Do we know?
The town councils have historically not allowed signs on town right-of-ways, any signs. And we do have a staff member that rides around and specifically picks up signs. And political signs are always a hot button. So it's just in the town's perspective, town council's perspective, for them not to be placed in the right-of-way. If you want to put a political sign on your property, that's well within your rights. But within the town right-of-way, historically, they have not been allowed.
The example of signs I think Ms. England's talking about were called snipe signs. These, I buy
Right.
ugly houses kind of signs or whatever they may be. People advertising their services, placing the right of way. So going to your Reed versus Gilbert example, if you allow political signs in your town rights of way during this election cycle, you basically can need to allow those signs in your right of way as well. Because the Reed versus Gilbert was, if you can read a sign to distinguish what kind of sign it is, then you're violating the freedom of
Free speech.
free
standard.
speech Act.
Right.
So,
But I mean,
so if you're going to allow those political signs in the town rights of way during the election cycle as listed, then you also need to allow those others, what I'm going to call snipe sign, for lack of a
Right.
better way to say it.
So
but
in
both-
essence, it's seen as a limitation of free speech.
Well,
Because if I can't put a sign up saying, "Hey, use my power washing business," then I shouldn't be. It starts to become arbitrary. As what's the difference between a political sign and me wanting to promote my
well,
business?
but there's a clear definitions of what that is.
But also the Reed versus
Applying political
Gilbert, the Reed versus Gilbert ruling was, if you have to read a sign to distinguish what kind of sign it is, then you're violating free speech. So if you allow this type of sign, you need to allow all types of signs
Right.
in all situations.
So it's
But-
kind of an absolutist view of what the First Amendment.
Well, yeah.
You can ban all speech, but
no.
you can't cherry pick.
I mean, there's
No, you can't ban off.
no, it's not banning, but the town has the right to dictate what signage is allowed in its rights of way. And in this case, but going back to that Reed versus Gilbert, if it allows a sign in the rights of way, it has to allow
All
the
signs.
signs.
I mean,
There's-
both roads are public roads, town or state. So I'm a little, well, I'll let other people speak, uncomfortable with the whole. It seemed like we were pretty good on taking that out, not because I guess what I envision is issues. You get a challenger to a council members an election, and they happen to place their sign in the town right away, close to an intersection with an it's NC dot road, and you got town staff pulling a sign out, and people with iPhone cameras. Is this the way it is now caused enough of a cost or headache for the town to get into that situation? I guess I'm pretty much a First Amendment absolutist. I believe it says government shall make no law infringing on 5 items in there. So I'm open-minded. Somebody convinced me that this is necessary, but I'm a little uncomfortable that.
Well, when
removing our-
you phrase it that way, I mean, I look at it and go, well, if it's a 6 feet right away, but it's my property, and then it's
No.
my yard. Yes, I understand it's not my property, but somebody could stick a sign on my yard, absent my approval or absent my endorsement of whatever that candidate's sign says. Now I can go out there and remove it, but then am I in violation?
Probably not.
I can see Ron smiling here.
No.
I have a feeling this
Oh.
has come up before.
But I mean, the property line's a property line.
Yeah, but if
Okay.
anything's allowed in a 6 foot right, and trust me, people will look at the 6 foot right away thing and say, "Hey, it's my yard." Okay, even though yes, the 6 feet is the right of way.
You mean from the what?
From the,
You're talking about from is there an edge of a curb to
Yeah.
talk about we would normally call parkway maybe?
Right.
To
Well,
where your
some,
property
I mean,
line-
some areas don't have curbs and they don't have sidewalks. Okay, I live in Sugar Sand. There's no sidewalk. There's no curb. So where does the 6 feet start?
Your town code currently says, whether it's DOT or not, 10 feet from the edge of the pavement. So they
How
are
much?
supposed to 10 feet from the edge of the pavement.
Okay, is considered right of way.
That's what this basically is saying. You need to put your sign, whether it's on current code in the town right of way or a DOT right of way. That sign has to be 10 feet from the edge
No
of the,
further
from
than
the
that.
edge of the pavement of the
Pavement.
road.
Okay.
Even if the line, in other words, if your I guess let me say your property line is 12 feet from the edge of the pavement. They still can't put it further than 10. They must be at least 10 feet. That 2 feet, they can't stick them there
Right.
close to your property. If your property line is 10 feet from the pavement,
Yeah.
then that spot they can. I guess if I gather right, but
Another good indicator of the right of way is where the utilities are.
Right.
Where you let telephone boxes, street lights, power poles,
Fire hydrants.
anything back behind those are going to be on private property.
Right.
Anything in front of those are going to be in the right of way.
Right.
and in reading, I read the state statute. It certainly does allow us to regulate or prohibit. It allows us to do this. I just don't know if it's the right thing to do. So, Stuart, Jerry,
I'm the same way. We go all pick and choose what signs we want. I guess I don't have an issue on this at all.
you're okay
Yeah, I'm fine with it, how it's written,
now, or how it's going to be changed?
how it's going to be changed.
Okay.
I don't like signs, period.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, can we get rid of them in DOT right away too?
No.
So I'm for, not having the signs in the town right away. But Richard brought up a great example of, somebody could come along and put up a sign in front of my house in the right of way that I wouldn't agree to. And then am I going to get in trouble if I go out in the right of way and pull up?
Typically, I believe town employees are the one pulling signs in the rights of way. If we find that they're in violation, town employees are pulling them.
But
May I ask, what was our experience in November? We had a lot of leftover signs in right away, a lot in town right away. What happened? What was reality in November between the 5th and the 15th when we were supposed to be removed or whatever? Were they removed
They were
properly or?
removed. I'm not aware that they weren't.
I don't have that.
I mean, my experience is just driving around the town in elections and having been a town council candidate. I'd say without exception, the signs are pretty much gone within 2 or 3 days. And you might see 1 or 2 loners somewhere, but I've never seen that as
That's typically the case.
being problematic. Yeah, I was fine with this until we started digging down into it a little bit. It raises a lot of questions. And second,
Want to table this?
are people really sophisticated enough to know the difference between an NCDOT right of way and a town right of way? I mean, if I'm a candidate, I'm just going to go out, point them where I think people are going to see them. And if I see a cluster of signs and my sign isn't amongst them, I'm going to put a sign there. And I'm not really going to care if it's NCDOT or town. And my experience is once those signs are up prior to the election, taking them down raises a lot of hackles. I mean, if I'm, and I actually had, it's interesting, I had signs removed within the Sea Trail of my candidacy, largely because of some of my issues with Riptide. And, didn't say anything, wasn't a big deal, but that's certainly another aspect of this.
So, I don't know. Obviously, the change, I guess we should review the change, before going.
Sure.
The change that he's proposing on 341C, obviously, is pretty clear. He's just in 2 places in subparagraph S, this taking the word town out there and then adding back what we previously struck out in paragraph VII. No sign shall be allowed in the town right away. And if I serve me right, that correction on the NCGS has to stay, right?
Yes, because I looked up.
163-6, just that paragraph actually tells everyone when the first day of early voting is.
Yeah.
Because it's saying you're allowed to put, which in my mind is too long. I'd rather change that than anything. That 30 days before the first day of early voting, I would love to change that, but that is what the state law says. Because that's like now 50 days before the election.
Right.
That's like, I don't think most people put their signs up that early just because wind and things are going to probably destroy your sign because they're those little flimsy things
Right.
that you don't see it. But anyway, that's 163, 66, 40 is
The
purely
previous
voting law.
The
right.
previous, I looked up that previous 163 to, and it actually referred
refers
back
to the new
refers to the
section,
other one,
right.
so
Now,
change
now
that.
how does this impact, because I see in a lot of elections, particularly this county commissioner election, there were signs that were constructed that were wooden on posts of a fairly significant size, probably 4 by 8. This doesn't impact this.
No.
Signs, whether you change the code or not, the size is limited to 864 square inches.
864 square inches. So 10 by 10, 20 by 20, 40 by 40. No, 40 by 200, 40 by 200.
Okay.
Okay.
So we need. Oh, go ahead, Jerry.
Would I suggest that we table this and let the town staff kind of look at it further and answer some of the questions that
I don't know
has
if they
been
can.
posed?
Kind of.
I'm suggesting.
Yeah, I know.
I'm just,
Yeah.
it's,
Ron,
Or just-
Ron, I mean, everything that we've done up to now has been to come into compliance with some of the new North Carolina legislation. Is this also?
No,
No,
this is separate. This is another item.
Okay,
So it has nothing to do with the previous.
This
item
is a
we're talking
choice.
about.
got it.
The current legislation, the way I read it, allows us to regulate or prohibit. When I read
Yes.
it's in paragraph F of the level F, which is application within municipalities. A city may, by ordinance, prohibit or regulate the placement of political signs on right-of-way of streets located within the corporate limits
Correct.
of a municipality and maintained by the municipality.
Correct. And
So-
So
Just
does
an
this
example.
raise the issue of, this does not apply then to the
it's
ETJ?
not applying to EJ
Right.
because there's
Oh,
not a
boy,
town
that's
street.
another layer of
It's not a
complication.
town maintained street.
Right.
Okay.
And just an example, in Wilmington, I know it's a much larger community.
Yes.
We did not allow election or political signs in town rights of way. They were allowed only in the NCDOT rights of way. Town had a lot of miles to maintain. So our staff was constantly, but we also had 8 or so code officers and zoning officials who were out as they're patrolling and doing other things, stopping and pulling signs.
So how about somebody
Um,
challenges that?
we-
We
had-
challenge the legality on First Amendment rights. and
No,
it-
no one challenged it, but we did not throw signs away. We kept them. If someone called and wanted, we would tell them they can meet us at such and such and you can have your signs back. They also, because of the number of streets and things town had, we also would meet with, not planning staff didn't, but I think the management office would meet with the candidates and let them know what the requirements were, basically. So kind of going, what's the difference between with a DOT street, et cetera. But
Well,
we
that
also-
sounds like a fairly reasonable way to regulate this. Lisa, is this something that, I mean, we have staff capacity to collect the signs, store them. If somebody wants them back, they can come, ask for them, and get them back. And code enforcement that can go out and go to a specific candidate and enlighten them on where. Because if we can do that, then fine. But if that's above and beyond the scope of what we have the capacity for, then that makes me a little nervous.
We call everybody that we pick up a sign for, political or a business.
Okay.
We call them and let them know that we have removed their signs and that they are here at town hall
Okay.
and they can come get them. And then we try to meet with any of the candidates prior to the election starting to sort of inform them of the town rules.
Okay.
And I was just going to add on the DOT streets, we allowed those snipe signs during that election. We did not allow snipe signs usually. Our staff was constantly pulling those signs up.
Mm-hmm.
But
So in
we had
terms
to
of,
during the
I'm
election
sorry,
cycle.
sorry.
No, go, you're good.
In terms of the roundabout, 179. Is that NCDOT or is that town?
It's DOT.
DOT.
Sorry?
It's DOT.
DOT.
And we did the same. as Wellington. We don't pull any signs off of any DOT roadways during elections.
All right. Well, I guess I need to get a little educated on what's DOT and what's town.
Anything with a
With
number
yellow,
on it.
yeah.
What?
Anything with a big number on it, 179 or
Yeah.
SR, whatever.
DOT roadways within town limits are Sunset Boulevard North and South,
Okay.
Shoreline West,
Right.
Main Street, 904.
Okay. But
Georgetown.
town roads within any of the developments would be, so this would prohibit signs in the right of ways of those areas. So I couldn't just go down Clubhouse Road and Sea Trail and start popping signs along the right of way.
Correct.
Okay.
You can now, right? Because some of those roads are town roads.
If it's a town road.
Right
As
now.
this is written right now, they could be in every community, on every roadway, everywhere.
But if we adopted this, the only way they could be in those communities if the property owner themselves.
Puts them on their private
Their
property.
Their own property.
Okay. I'm getting a little more comfortable with this.
Ron, in subsection X, can we add something about removal of signs? Because we talk about they're responsible for erecting and any violations. Can they also be responsible for removal? Because I don't see anything in here about them being responsible for removing the sign, unless it's somewhere else in the code.
I mean, I guess we could address it, but I think most of the time staff's just pulling the sign if it's not placed properly.
Well, I meant
At the end of,
at the end of the election
Right,
period
Okay.
that they're responsible for removing their own sign.
Yeah, because I think that's something I'd like to take off the staff's plate.
Yeah.
I mean, I know when in my run for council, I pulled my own signs.
You also have to change the code in 9 IX.
Yep.
163.
General
227.
statute reference.
Yeah.
Yep.
So what are you proposing for 10, Stuart? Reading?
Not sure. I'm not sure
Yeah.
how that would have to read to.
So what I think I'm hearing Stuart saying, but erecting or removing, or parties responsible for erecting the sign shall be held responsible for also removing, for any violations and for also removing signs following the election.
Yep.
And we also call the candidate if it's remaining after,
Okay. So I think
even if it's on DOT roadways at that time.
our choice is to go with Jerry's suggestions, to vote to table this till next month. We'll have an additional member. And then
Yeah.
any further, and then final clarification on text, or alternatively, someone can make a motion to go with either A or B, whichever one somebody wants to make a motion, and then take a vote on it. So
I'm persuaded by Gary's suggestion that we take a look at this in a month.
So you
So
want
we
to,
have-
Jerry, want to make a
we-
motion to table this for 1 month?
we only have about a year and a half before the next election, so I think we can.
Okay.
do it in a
Well,
month.
Well, there's gonna be
Yeah, election.
There's-
It'll be election
there's-
this year,
When?
municipal.
Oh, okay. I
When is that?
retract that statement.
When is that?
The municipal election in November.
Yeah.
To November
Yes.
of this year. So we
I'll-
got to November.
I'd like to make a motion that we table this to March's meeting.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 If I could
Hold on.
ask what specifically you're looking for staff to bring you back,
Well, final
Corrections.
corrections on the language here, I guess, and then,
on which specific pieces?
and I guess maybe more thought time, it sounds like. I don't know if that makes any sense to you, but, so the things we talked, a couple of small corrections, and I guess maybe more thought time.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't sense that everyone is enthusiastically convinced either yes or no yet.
Yeah.
So we're going to move one way or the other. I mean, I guess if the council wants it, they're free to take it up and do it.
Now, I'm just asking
I
what you
know.
want us to bring you back, because I'm
So
not sure
some
that
final
I'm
direction-
or
I
wrong.
think it would be helpful to have in written form the procedures that you've already shared with us in terms of how you handle this sign issue, whether we choose not to restrict it on town right of way. And if, in other words, if we adopt this change, what's the impact in terms of your staff and how you would manage it? And if we don't adopt this change, what the impact would be on your staff? And give us some clarity in
And-
terms of
And does,
what the procedures are now that are,
can we also look at Wes's notes from those 2 meeting dates? March 2nd of 23 and, Whatever,
of 23,
no, I gotta look at my note. What were those 2 dates where, hold on.
When was
June 6,
22?
2022.
On the audit and stuff, on how he made, yeah, June 16th of 22 and March 2nd of 23. When we did the audit, he was taking extensive notes. Did he have any input on,
Have
How
to
we
see
got
what he
there.
has.
or you already talked to him
I
about it?
mean, I will have to see what he has. I mean,
Right.
I know he participated in the conversation because I actually went back and listened to the meeting.
But I
when he
guess if we
did.
do table it for 1 month, which we have,
So,
certainly next month, we need to make a decision
I agree.
up
Yeah,
or
that's
down. Then. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'd like to go back and look at these notes too, because,
Okay.
I mean, review the actual meetings.
so we want to see the new language or the revised language.
Final
We
revise,
want procedures on how the issue is handled currently, the impact on staff with or without the change is what I've heard. And if we can find any additional notes from,
It just seems to me,
Specific
in my
notes on that.
record, that striking that was,
it
because
was,
it was there,
it was
was
a lot
a
of
li-
conversation.
there had to have been something in the, so
It was a lot of
if he's
conversation.
got nothing, he's
but-
got nothing, but I'm glad to, would be happy to hear what he might have in his notes.
I mean, I did look through through the planning files to see what I could find, other
Yeah.
than minutes and then the
Yeah.
audit Ron that you mentioned.
Yeah.
I guess the official audit, I didn't see much.
Right.
Yeah.
That was-
I mean,
Okay.
my sense is, in terms of the public, I don't think this is like a button issue, but I'd sure like to have some over the fence conversations just to make sure.
Okay,
thank
so
you,
that's tabled, till, we'll table it, certainly come to some resolution in the March meeting. Okay, now we're moving on to administrative comments. And the 2 items we have to look at, any general administrative comments first from the administration side? The 2 items we had, everything's good on your side?
I was going to bring up something to you guys, but given the time, we started later today. What the item I was going to bring to your attention is situations where we have a through lot, frontage on a front street and a back street.
Like me?
Yeah, like you. To me, the code's not real clear on whether or not when someone puts in proposing to put in a swimming pool and like any accessory sheds or whatever to accommodate the swimming pool and the fencing required for the swimming pool, whether the code allows it or not. It's happened in town and it's been permitted in the years. Connecting those dots to how it's been permitted previously to me is
Make it-
questionable. So
Okay.
was going to bring the issue to you today to discuss it. I had a picture of an illustration and kind of go through what I'm finding troubling in the code to get to yes, if you will.
So we'll do that in March too?
So we can do that in March. I can
Okay.
maybe even either discussion or bring some code language to you because I knew that we have at least one application in the queue right now for that particular
Is
issue.
it holding up?
It's something in the queue that I'm in the process of reviewing, and I'm trying to connect the dots on how they had been permitted previously.
Okay.
And I'm not
So-
connecting those dots. But you got things like
So March, we can either have it as a discussion item, or do you think we'll actually have?
I'm
total?
hoping to maybe have some language, but it'll be one or the other. I mean,
So it's through lots or putting up a pool or accessory structure and require fencing, safety fencing
correct,
that they need to put up,
correct.
that our code addresses that
Yeah.
properly.
And then
So the
just,
spirit of it is, we certainly, if someone's putting in a swimming pool, of course, I
Right.
think we want certainly the safety to be
correct,
maintained so that somebody, kid don't fall in the pool.
correct.
So our code certainly shouldn't be stopping, inhibiting proper safety.
Right.
Totally understand and agree. I just want to be able to issue a permit that's consistent with your codes and connecting all those dots. I'm not finding it in the code. The issue is, you have a through lot. It, by definition, is frontage on two streets.
Right.
You can't have a fence in the front of a house. So if you got
Right.
frontage on two streets, you have technically two fronts.
Hmm.
Well,
So just,
Is there a minimum
those are-
lot size issue with this?
No. So
the setback is more. It's 50 on both from both streets.
correct.
Okay.
And-
Normally, it's 50 from the front and 25 from the
And
rear.
swimming
but
pools-
when you have two streets, it's 50-50.
Swimming pools have to comply with the setback of the principal structure. Storage sheds, or say a gazebo, accessory structures, aren't allowed in forward of a property unless you have like a bunch of property. So there's things, so
Right.
just connecting all those dots and getting to yes on a
So
permit.
just
I'm
from
having
the
trouble with.
setback requirements, this has got to be a pretty big lot.
Hmm.
Just from the setback requirements, this has to be a pretty big lot.
Yeah. Depends on what your front setbacks would be, but of course, yes, 25 feet or 50 feet,
Yeah.
depending on what the zoning is.
All right.
Okay,
so
so
I'm
we
not
need
a-
to rest that.
I'm not opposed to hearing or seeing his visual presentation today if that helps speed
Yeah.
things up.
I do have another meeting at 1 o'clock, but I'm
Oh.
passing this out. This is the example that I'm
If, it,
looking at now.
if some feedback helps Ron
Yep.
get through this quicker,
Yeah.
I don't want to hold up a property owner.
So in this particular one, they have frontage on Ocean Harbor and Peakwood. You'll see the location of the pool. I'm not confirmed setbacks or anything, whether or not the pool location complies with the setback. So
Do I need any conflict of interest statement here?
we're not
I
voting
live
on
here?
anything.
We're
Okay.
not voting.
So this is this is an example on one that's actually in the queue now.
Oh, I
Yeah.
see. Okay.
Are you on the HOA board for Ocean Harbor, or do
No.
you have any?
Thank God I got off all that stuff.
Okay, then you shouldn't have a conflict.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
And I don't know, I guess that
So,
goes,
so this lot is between two other
yes,
It's-
lots that have homes on it.
yes.
Okay.
So, but yeah, the code wise, you have frontage on two streets.
Right.
Swimming pool has to comply with the front setbacks on both streets.
We
Fences aren't allowed in the front yard or in the front of
we
a
kind of
house.
talked to this before, wasn't there? We had an engineer here from. Yeah.
Yes.
Why can't we just some way just designate the front is the front
Front,
where the
That's
address
an
is?
option,
yeah.
but the code doesn't say it.
Well, then maybe that's what we got. I mean,
I think that would be the way to do it.
I know what the front of my house is because that's my front door and my address is, and I know what the back is, and I don't propose to have two fronts.
I've seen codes that do something similar to what you're talking about. You have a secondary, you designate a secondary street,
Yeah.
and from the secondary street, these are the requirements. Fences, your current code has, like if you want to put a fence in the side yard or adjacent to a street, it has to meet a certain setback. It has to have a transparency requirement. There's the ideas, but I'm just telling you, this is something I want
Yeah.
to bring to your attention, bring
Right.
through the process. to try
Because
to
I
fix
thought
to
we had
allow.
the same problem with that guy gentleman, excuse me, the engineer from Sanctuary, trying to identify, it was again, so maybe the better, I don't know, I don't have to pull the notes on, he was gonna come back with something later, right?
And I've
But
talked
they
to
had
him.
the same issue with what's the front, so maybe we
Right.
need to designate that if you got a road if you're in between two roads, somehow your front has to be picked as your front, and your other road is your rear, and then make sure our code allows it properly for what's in the
I'll
rear.
come back in March with some language.
Okay, we agree?
But this is what we're
Yeah.
trying to, I'm going to use the word
This
fix.
is what you're trying to fix.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, this is.
Well, the issue with
Next
that
permit.
is, I mean, you
Yeah,
could have
I'm
one
45.
property that says my
Yeah.
front's on this street, and you could have another property that says my front is on that street. That gets to be a little dicey.
That could be a little weird,
Yes.
especially if they put a garage, a
Yeah.
detached garage in
Yeah.
your front yard.
So, I mean, this is, to me, is a bit of a Pandora's box in terms of saying, okay, all right.
which is why I want to try to have some closure, and so it's moving forward. Everyone knows what it is, and what the standards are.
Well, I mean, in terms of safety here, are we more concerned about setback from the road or setback from the house?
No, it's just the fencing.
It's more about the fencing.
Well, yeah, but I mean, the fencing,
They're allowed to put the fence in the rear.
Yeah.
right.
If in this particular, the way I read it, in this particular case, if the front is considered the Ocean Harbor side and the Peakwood side, they can't fence the pool
Right,
because they got two fronts,
right.
which in my mind there's
I'm not saying I disagree with you. I'm just saying the code doesn't necessarily address this problem.
so I guess that's my first look at it is you can only have one front, and either we define what it is or you have to pick what it is, but you can't have, you got a front and a back, not two
Right.
fronts or two backs.
Let me see what kind of language I can come
Okay.
up with, and we'll kick it
Yeah,
around.
I mean, could something where staff or the town in these cases said, all right, here, the front is on this road and this road only, and then the back road is secondary. Is that something you could do on a case-by-case basis,
We'll
or?
need to look at it, I think. And so let me look at the language, see what I
Okay.
can.
Whenever you give that, then you get
Here's
that
some extras.
extras.
I just made 10 copies
Yeah.
real quickly.
All right,
Well, we'll have to look at it, but again, I think the overall thing is certainly we want to have the safety of the pool.
yeah, no,
Okay.
we've got to figure out how to make a fence. I mean, I'm just shocked that the requirement here is only 4 feet.
The fence.
Hmm?
Yeah, that's.
I mean,
All right.
Okay,
all right,
Okay.
well, so we'll have that to, we'll have signs and fronts and backs addressed in the March meeting. Next, which we put off from last meeting and we added to the agenda is election of the chair and the vice chair. We're going to wait for the new member, but at this point, let's just get it done, I guess. So,
I'm going to move that we reelect Ron LeBruno for chair.
I'll
Second.
second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 apparently the ayes have it. Then I'll move to reelect Jerry as the vice chair.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I
Good.
mean, Jerry's nodding
I
his
know
head
you were
like, oh
trying.
my God, what am I?
You should have put up a political sign saying no Jerry. So no, so Ronald Bruno
Not
as
in the
chair.
town right away.
Jerry is also reelected as the vice chair. And then we had, and certainly try to wrap this up in 5 or 10 minutes here, because Ron too has another meeting to get to. So let's go, no more than 7 minutes here on, Stuart, your little brief discussion on long-term planning.
Okay, so I've
And
been
Stuart,
thinking.
if I could interrupt you
Yeah.
for 1 second to start with this. At the council meetings budget, we talked about the planning position versus, Ron being part-time with us versus hiring a full-time. Carrie and Ron and I have got together and decided that, or came to the recommendation that the test worked and it worked well. And my recommendation to the town council is to stay with that. In addition to that, it is time for you all to start the land use plan rewrite process. And I have had a conversation with Wes, and he will lead that, just as he did the UDO amendment. We will be including that contract in the 25-26 budget for you all to start with the land use plan rewrite. And his recommendation is for you all to get a copy, if you don't have one,
Of the land use plan.
of the current land use plan and to review that. But when we start, we will start fresh with a new format and a total rewrite of the land use plan. And this does go to CAMA for their approval. So it'll be a couple of year process as well. So just to let you know that those two things are coming that may tie into your long range planning.
And can we review, because it's not just so much about the text as it is about the process. My recollection is that the land use plan was an attempt to engage the community, and community members were invited, not appointed, to be part of adding value, adding insight to what the land use plan is going to look like.
There are public participation portions of the process.
Yeah, because I think this is critical. And when I look at the land use plan, it is relying on data from 2010.
Mhm.
The most recent data in that land use plan is from 2015. We all know that there has been a sea change in terms of the population that surrounds us, the impact of Brunswick County's obvious appetite for new development that are going to impact how Sunset Beach is going to manage our little enclave, if you will. And I think everyone's recollection
nice
is
7
probably
minutes
fresh on
started,
this.
No,
So that'll give you a
I'm
couple of
holding-
months to
I'm holding 7
review what we have
Still
now,
have public
and then
comment.
you'll start in August, September is when
Okay.
Wes recommends starting the process.
Stuart,
All right.
you get
so,
your 7 minute as a Congress.
So my little thing I wanted to throw out there was, and I appreciate the comments and the current land use plan, trying to get an update on the land use plan, I think is good. So typically a land use plan is about zoning. What are the uses going to be on land in the town? So we don't really have that much land left. We don't have that many options. And what I've been thinking about is that a lot of towns have what they call small area plans or comprehensive growth plans. And in my mind, we have two big areas that I think need more scrutiny, more planning, and that's the island and Sunset Boulevard. And I just like to think about what does the town look like 20 years from now, 30 years from now, and are we making the right decisions about aesthetics of Sunset Boulevard? Can we include, do we need to be thinking about a trolley stop for 20 years from now that's built into the village? Because once that stuff is gone, the spaces are gone, you can't get it back.
And I would add to that is the mud district, because I feel in terms
Well, that's
of
what I'm talking about, the village.
Right.
We really have like you said, we have a great opportunity there for a really unique shopping area. And then, you think about the island, that's what draws everybody here is the island. And now we have a new town park, but we haven't thought about sidewalks to get to the park. There's no sidewalk anywhere near that park. So how do we safely get people to the park? And I'm not saying this all has to happen in a year or whatever, but long range, if we're going to have monies from grants, if we're going to have monies from other things, can we have goals 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Can we put a sidewalk on Canal Drive or Cobia that gets us to the town park? Can we, there's lots of other things that could be done. And so I'm just thinking that instead of spending a lot of time talking about the land use plan, that there's not a whole lot we can do. Can we talk about specific things on Sunset Boulevard and specific things improvements we'd like on the island? And maybe there's a way to link the two so that, again, we can try and get people out of the cars. And there's a way to link, could the village have golf cart parking spaces? Could it have bicycle parking? There's not either of those there. Can we encourage people from Sea Trail to get to the village in their golf cart instead of getting in their car or on a bike?
and I the
There's
challenge
just no link.
Yeah, the challenge that I see is when I look at the land use plan, there's a lot of great stuff in it, but it really became a blunt tool. And I think my frustration with it, with the Logan development, they used some of those things in the land use plan that were in complete defiance of what we were trying to do in the UDO. And I think we need to take a look, because I agree with you. We need something that has kind of a
My problem with the land use plan, it just, I mean, I keep reading the stupid thing that it's either consistent or non-consistent. I guess just runs through my mind as it's a guideline. It's not really law. It's a guideline. That's all it is. What we follow, it just, I guess, to me, it becomes a binder on a shelf
Yeah.
that we're required to have, unfortunately, but doesn't do much. When I have to admit, Stuart brought this to my attention a couple of days ago. I'm saying, well, I was afraid you were going to do this to us, is make us rewrite it. So it's sure to me, if we could combine this effort in one, and maybe Wes or somebody at COGS can say, if we're going to spend the time and money, can we create the requirement of the land use plan and also come up with some sort of Sunset Beach 2050 in there together, either two books or one book that does say, okay, this is what we want it to look like.
Right.
That we set goals and objectives. Yes, we would like walkability, bike. We would like some of the things on our resilience that we looked at. I think ERC has now. Some of our goals should be more after disaster resilience. Can be incorporated. So I guess if we're going to take on, I just hate doing this land use because in my opinion of it is going to be we're doing it to put a book on the shelf because it's a requirement, which just bugs me. But I'll do it because we have to do it. But I'd be sure more enthusiastic about it if we were coming up while doing that with a product that is more visionary, sets a goal, tells people. I got to say, I'm not happy with the no planning director thing. Not that Ron's not doing a great job. I think it's penny wise and pound foolish. To me, the more sensible way is combine that job with an economic development director's job.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So maybe the planning director only needs he's pressed on that 20. Maybe the planning director only needs 30 hours a week, but it sure be like at the other 10 spent trying to do economic development. We have Sunset Boulevard here. We're talking about the overlay district, and there isn't a building on it that's commercial. Well, there's a couple.
Yeah.
Okay, and sea trails. So
And if we
gotta
have
some
a
of that could be
vision
merged
of-
into our vision.
Yeah.
if we have a vision of what it's going to look like, then we can talk to economic partners about, hey,
Yeah.
this is what we see, and can you help us, get
Yeah.
to this
Because
end?
no major enterprise is going to kind of volunteer to walk into a community that hasn't clearly defined its goals. And the ones that will are going to do what they want to do absent our guidance. And so my frustration here historically, and this comes from my background in business development, is, strategy is about what you want to be in 5 years, what you want to be in 10 years. And that's what we ought to be writing. And then now you can get somebody on economic development, and then you can go to the appropriate kinds of businesses that you want to welcome into the community, as opposed to being at the mercy of who shows up.
Right. I mean, like I reiterate to Stuart, if I remember, sir, I'm pretty sure, the changes we made to the old UDO that got into this one concerning the parking requirements was generated, I think, primarily from commercial interests coming to the town and saying, we're not putting things in your business because your parking is nuts. And we went and fixed it, but it hasn't seemed to. So to me, not having somebody, one, we don't have a vision, don't have somebody who's taking that input. When somebody comes to the town and say, we're thinking about doing X, Y, then they look at the book and go, oh, we can't do that, or whatever. It'd be nice to have someone, even if it's only 10 hours a week, working on that. So I guess we're kind of at the end of time here now. I don't know, maybe when you're talking with Wes or COGS on the land use plan, is there a way, they have any experience in making that more useful by expanding it to a longer term vision of planning and economic development and safety and what can be done or can't be done? So I don't know, were you planning on having like Wes come in and do a briefing to us like we did before on how we're getting started? And you said August or something, but maybe it could be done a little earlier, April or
Yeah.
May or saying.
So we can start thinking about
Thinking
where we're
about
headed. Oak Island has a comprehensive plan, which is a giant document. Of course, they're a giant island compared to us, but it deals in a lot of this stuff that's way beyond the land use plan.
Yeah.
But
Well, Stuart,
And I think the
I
two
don't-
could be tied together.
yeah, and
Absolutely. And we'll have that conversation with Wes, and
okay.
I'm sure he'll be more than happy to come
All
I don't know if you've
before we get to budget.
done anything like this before, or
Mhm.
I don't know what yours and Russ's experience.
My experience.
I'm not even sure what we want really, but in my mind, the land use plan as I see being used or applied now seems to be the utility is low. On a scale of 1 to 10, it's like 1 or 2
Yeah.
in my mind.
right.
And I'd sure like to get that to 8. That we have a
Absolutely.
book that has more utility for zoning and planning and safety and all those things in one. It might be just too big of a reach. Wes just, when you tell him it's going to just fall over, or we can do. So I don't know what the action item on this. The action item, I guess, is at some point for you guys to come back or Wes to come in and give us a talk on what's possible and what is not possible or practical for that matter. And I guess certainly the council is listening to may want to weigh in themselves, which is fine. Because if
Yeah,
anything,
Well,
may be spending money that-
the other thing we need to be aware of in the land use plan, the land use plan was supposed to be revised every 2 years, and it was not. Okay, and I think that's a major flaw. It was also supposed to be rewritten every 7 years, and it was officially adopted in 2017. So we're already behind schedule.
that's why they're bringing it up.
So I
Okay.
think
So
we want to expedite
good.
this in terms of time.
let's
rather
bring this
than-
to a wrap if we can. Anything else? Urgency from anybody?
No.
Okay, the next item is the public comments on any item. Any public comments on any item? None?
Well,
Okay.
thanks for coming.
Do we have a motion for adjournment? Are you guys okay on the end? Okay for adjournment? Anybody want to make a motion for adjournment?
I so move.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We adjourn. Thank you, everybody.
Stuart.
Thank you, everybody, for the change in schedule and then the nice talk and going a little bit longer.
Yeah.